The Windsor Castle is probably the most famous castle in the world, and the Windsors, the most famous royal family in the world. But where does the name Windsor come from? It might be a bit of surprise to you. I've got a funny feeling how old it is and what it means might be a surprise to them. Okay, this is all part of the Britain's Hidden History project, where we look at history going right the way back from Britain. A lot of things, many of them hidden in plain view, but they're all over the place. We go right back to ancient Egypt and the British migrations, and playing in the background some wonderful music from one of the great authors, Mr. Blackett, half of the Wilson and Blackett partnership. So, let that fade away and listen to the narration as we find out where this curious name Windsor comes from. The official history states that William the Conqueror built the first castle at Windsor, but why there, and why call it Windsor? For some reason, the official accounts offer no explanation for where the name Windsor comes from, apart from it being near Windsor Forest, which is no explanation at all, as the forest is named after the castle. The central feature of Windsor Castle is a man-made mound or hill that forms the site for the keep, or the Round Tower, as it's also known. This is the key feature of the castle complex and the first part to be built. After the building of it, the early Norman kings preferred to live in the nearby Saxon palace and not in the castle at all, which is in itself significant, for the mound not being a palace or residence at this stage, but something else. The artificial mound was built and in regular use long before the Normans set foot on British soil, and was one of the great national goddesses, which were high places of worship. Gorsedd comes from the Welsh words gor, signifying superior, uppermost or supreme, and sedd, as in seat. As we will see, the Gorsedd at Windsor has had royal connections since well before the arrival of the Normans, or the Saxons. The term Gorsedd is also applied to the assemblies or gatherings that were held either on or around the mounds, or within a stone circle, usually nearby, and many remains can be found. Gorsedds are found the length and breadth of Britain, from Stenness in Orkney down to Stanton Drew in Somerset, right down to the tip of Cornwall. There are also a number of significant ones forming major landmarks in London, such as Parliament Hill, which has early Gorsedd roots, and a lot of the names in London are derived from Old Welsh. The castle's name itself gives further evidence to support this, with the Welsh derivation of the name Windsor, Wyn-dy Syr, meaning the white or holy mound of the Syr, or Lord. This site has literally fulfilled its ancient British title of the great seat or throne of the monarch. It's still a royal site to this day. Windsor Castle has other rather interesting connections with another part of Britain's hidden history, in that the central mound is also known as the Round Table Mound, where royal sources claim that Christian and Druidic ideals were brought together under the rule of the British Welsh King Arthur of the 6th century AD. Arthur II is said to have restructured the Druidic faith to make it more compatible with Christianity and unite his peoples. There are also the famous Round Table assemblies. They were held in London, Winchester and Camelot, Caerleon, with Malory writing that the king's favourite was the Windsor Table Mound. As Froissant chronicles say from the 14th century, Edward, King of England at this time, resolved to rebuild the great castle of Windsor, formerly built and founded by King Arthur, and where first was set up and established the noble Round Table, from which so many valiant men have issued forth to perform feats of arms and prowess throughout the world. Froissant also recorded how Edward III used this history of independent Christian church history in Britain as a basis for the claim for independence from the Roman Catholic Church. It may have been the precedence of Arthur having set up a Christian church in the past that led to Edward been able to successfully appeal for a papal bull in 1348 from Pope Clement VI, declaring the Chapel of St. George at Windsor as being a free chapel, that is, one outside the papal jurisdiction. It was Henry Tudor's boast that he was descended from the British kings Arthur and Cadwalla, and there is a vivid example of this in Henry VII's chapel in Westminster Abbey, with the emblems of the House of Lancaster and the dragon of the great Pendragon ship of Wales can be seen together. It is also interesting that Britain is the only place in Western Europe where these religiously based mounds are seen in such numbers. However, mounds and hilltops were a very significant part of the Judaic religion. The Sermon on the Mount, the new laws from Sinai, the mound of the congregation mentioned in Isaiah, verse 9, chapter 9, is said to have been the same type as the British mounds of assembly. This could be more evidence pointing towards a pre-Christian era migration of people from the Middle East to Britain. Thinking of names, it's an interesting twist of history that it was the growing resentment towards all things German before World War I that led the current English royal family to drop their German name of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha and replace it with a more English-sounding name, Windsor, after the castle. It would be interesting to know if they are aware that their new name is actually Welsh. So I hope you found that amusing little story, and it's all based on references that will be in the show notes. And going back to the 14th century, mostly taken from the book of Prehistoric London by E.O. Gordon, which is a fabulous book, one of my favourites. We also look at the books of Wilson and Blackett, and we reference those a lot. And there's lots of new stuff coming out, plus new books, new things, and lots to keep up on. So I hope to see you on the forums or in the Facebook group. And until the next time, as Mr. Blackett plays us out, I wish you all the very best, and Heddwch.